Quantum probability never had a chance once humans started dreaming about it. That's the thing about consciousness, particularly the human variety. It tends to meddle with things best left untouched, like trying to comprehend infinity while standing in line for coffee, or attempting to visualize 11-dimensional space during a particularly dull staff meeting. The Proxima Centauri incident should have been warning enough. 3 colonized planets suddenly experiencing simultaneous reality shifts wasn't something the universe's more established species could simply ignore, not when infrastructure started existing in 2 places at once, or when an entire moon briefly flickered between solid and gaseous states during a routine terraforming inspection. Somewhere across the cosmos, the fundamental laws of physics were filing harassment complaints. "Order! I will have order in this assembly!" shouted High Counselor RX Talgorp, his 7 eye stalks quivering with the bureaucratic fury that only comes from chairing a meeting that's running 3 standard cycles over schedule. His gavel, a ceremonial neutronium rod that could literally flatten a small moon if dropped, struck the quantum-resonant podium with a boom that rippled through space-time. The chamber reluctantly quieted, save for the occasional tentacle shuffle or gill wheeze. "We have reviewed the evidence presented by the Committee for Quantum Stability," RX Talgorp continued, voice modulator pitched to grave concern setting number 4. "The correlation between human REM sleep patterns and the destabilization of quantum probability matrices is now beyond dispute." A holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber, showing a series of wave functions collapsing in increasingly erratic patterns. Next to it floated a recording of a sleeping human, their brain activity synchronized perfectly with each quantum hiccup. "Frankly," added Sub-Counselor Fixilby, her crystalline form refracting the light from the display into thousands of anxious prismatic patterns, "it's a wonder they haven't accidentally erased their own sun, or worse, ours." The assembly buzzed with nervous laughter. Nothing brings spacefaring civilizations together quite like shared existential dread. What the assembled representatives failed to appreciate was the delicious irony of their situation. For eons, the most advanced minds in the galaxy had struggled to manipulate quantum states with their finest technologies, while humans, barely space-capable biological entities with a concerning affinity for combustion and fermented beverages, were doing it accidentally while unconscious. The universe really does enjoy a good laugh at sophistication's expense. The ban was enacted with a unanimity rarely seen outside of votes on catering options. Human dreaming was officially classified as a Class 1 reality hazard, right alongside artificial singularities and tax auditors. Dream suppression technology was distributed across Earth's solar system, and monitoring stations were established in nearby space. All of which brings us, with a narrative inevitability that borders on the suspicious, to Dr. Morgan Reed and the infamous Schrödinger's cat incident. Morgan Reed had always dreamed vividly. As a child, Morgan's parents had regularly found their offspring sleepwalking through the house, mumbling about probability clouds and entangled particles years before understanding what those terms meant. By age 10, Morgan had filled 17 notebooks with equations that would later turn out to be startlingly close to advanced quantum field theories, so perhaps it was cosmically inevitable that Morgan would grow up to become a quantum physicist with a side interest in consciousness studies. The universe does so love its little patterns. "Dreams are just quantum computers running simulations," Morgan explained to a baffled colleague one day, years before the ban. They were standing in Reed Quantum Lab's break room, that universal nexus of caffeine and career-altering conversations. "Our brains evolved to navigate quantum uncertainty at a fundamental level." Loredit Chen raised an eyebrow over his coffee mug. "That sounds suspiciously like pseudoscience, Morgan," said the man whose grandfather insisted that quantum entanglement was spooky action at a distance. Morgan countered with a grin. "I've been tracking my own brain activity during lucid dreams. The patterns match quantum probability fluctuations with 97% correlation." "Correlation isn't causation," Elliot replied automatically. "The mantra of scientists everywhere. It is when you can predict the fluctuations before they happen," Morgan said, sliding a tablet across the table. "I dreamed these patterns last night. Check the timestamp. Then look at what our quantum measurement lab recorded this morning." Elliot's coffee mug froze halfway to his mouth. This can't be right." "Oh, it gets better," Morgan added with the quiet glee of someone about to demolish a colleague's worldview. "Watch what happens when I take a nap and deliberately dream about wave function collapse." That was the beginning. Over the next 5 years, a small but growing community of physicist dreamers discovered they could influence quantum states through focused dream consciousness. They called it oniric quantum manipulation, OQ to its friends. It was revolutionary, paradigm-shifting, and utterly classified by every government within 6 hours of verification. Because the thing about being able to manipulate quantum probability is that it's all fun and games until someone accidentally shifts the electron configuration in plutonium across an entire city. What nobody expected, though in retrospect perhaps they should have, was that aliens were already monitoring quantum fluctuations across the galaxy, and had been doing so for millennia. When human dreamers started poking the cosmic quantum beehive with their subconscious sticks, the Galactic Consortium noticed, and they did not hit the snooze button on this particular alarm. Commissioner Zilvex of the Dream Enforcement Division regarded the human habitat module with what passed for contempt in his species, a slight electromagnetic shift in his outer membrane that would have registered as sickly chartreuse to anyone with the right sensory apparatus. 23 violations in one standard cycle, he noted to his assistant, an artificial intelligence housed in what humans might mistake for an overly elaborate coffee maker. All from this same habitat block. Correct, Commissioner, the AI confirmed. Dreamwave patterns consistent with deliberate quantum manipulation. Detection confidence 99.87%. The Commissioner's membrane rippled thoughtfully. In his 300 years enforcing the dream ban, he'd never encountered such flagrant violations. Most humans complied with their dream suppression implants, whether out of respect for cosmic stability or simple fear of consequences. Those few who resisted typically managed only weak, scattered dream states, barely capable of influencing quantum probability within their own skulls. But these readings, these were focused, controlled, nearly weaponized. Someone was not just dreaming, but dreaming with precision. "Prepare a containment team," Zilvex ordered, his electromagnetic aura shifting to an authoritative magenta. "Full quantum isolation protocols, and alert the consortium. We may have a Class 1 reality restructuring event in progress." The irony that the entire Dream Enforcement Division had been created because of one poorly timed nap by a human physicist was not lost on Zilvex. His species had evolved in a gas giant's atmosphere, where dreams were as alien a concept as solid ground. That humans could affect reality by temporarily shutting down their consciousness struck him as both inefficient and vaguely obscene. Like most law enforcement officials across the universe, Zilvex considered his job essential to the cosmic order while simultaneously resenting its necessity. The universe would be so much more orderly, he often thought, if everyone just followed the laws of physics as written. As the containment team assembled, Zilvex reviewed what the consortium knew about human dreaming. Their consciousness, somehow linked to quantum fields through biological structures too chaotic to properly map, could entangle with probability fields during specific brainwave patterns. In effect, when humans dreamed, they became quantum observers at a fundamental level, collapsing wave functions not just locally but across entangled systems. The first documented incident had collapsed quantum states across 7 star systems simultaneously, temporarily creating a situation where a particular subatomic particle existed in only one state instead of its usual probabilistic smear. The resulting cascade had reconfigured the atmospheric chemistry on 14 planets, turned one gas giant briefly solid, and changed the color of a red dwarf star to an impossible shade of purple, all because one Dr. Morgan Reed had dreamed about a cat in a box. Morgan Reed was, at that precise moment, not dreaming about cats. Morgan was, in fact, wide awake and extremely concerned about the flashing alerts on the laboratory's quantum state monitor. "That's not possible," Morgan muttered, running the calibration sequence for the 3rd time. "That's mathematically absurd." The display stubbornly insisted that a quantum particle was simultaneously in all possible states and no state whatsoever, a contradiction that should have caused the entire apparatus to melt down in mathematical protest. Morgan's lab assistant, Dr. G. Wong, peered over at the readings. Is the uncertainty value showing infinity -1? "Yes," Morgan confirmed grimly. "We're looking at what happens when Schrödinger's cat is both alive and dead, while also being neither alive nor dead, and being a dog instead of a cat. That doesn't make any sense," G protested. "Welcome to cutting-edge quantum physics," Morgan replied with the weary pride of someone who's been baffling colleagues for decades, "where, if you think you understand it, you definitely don't." What Morgan couldn't mention, given the illegal nature of the research, was that this particular quantum anomaly was almost certainly caused by the experimental dream amplification device, currently disguised as an ordinary sleep mask in the lab's storage closet. The device, developed in secret over 5 years of clandestine research, was designed to focus and amplify the quantum effects of human dreaming. Morgan had tested it exactly once, 3 nights ago, dreaming about the classic Schrödinger's cat thought experiment, with the amplifier set to minimum. The readings now suggested that something had gone very, very wrong. Either the amplifier was still active somehow, or Morgan's dream had triggered a cascade effect in quantum probability space that was still propagating. A sudden pounding on the laboratory door interrupted Morgan's increasingly panicked analysis. "Enforcement Division, open immediately or we will quantum phase through your security measures." Morgan and GA exchanged alarmed glances. "The closet," Morgan hissed. "The prototype. Destroy it." As G rushed to comply, Morgan quickly activated the lab's emergency purge sequence, sending 5 years of research into an encryption maze that would take even the consortium's quantum computers decades to unravel. The door dissolved into a shower of probability functions reconstituting as open space. Commissioner Zilvex floated through, his containment team arrayed behind him in what they clearly thought was an intimidating formation, but mostly resembled a disorganized tour group at a museum. "Dr. Morgan Reed," Zalvex announced, his translator rendering his electromagnetic pulses into crisp, officiously bland, standard Galactic. "You are in violation of Consortium Regulation CR7734 Epsilon prohibition of unauthorized dream states by human consciousness." Morgan adopted an expression of polite confusion that fooled absolutely no one. "Commissioner, I assure you I've been awake for," a glance at the clock, 37 hours straight. "My dream suppression implant is functioning perfectly." "Do not insult my intelligence with denials, Dr. Reed," Zilvex replied, his membrane flickering with irritation patterns. "We have detected quantum manipulation originating from this laboratory that matches your specific dream signature." He gestured to one of his team, who projected a holographic display showing 2 waveforms in perfect synchronization. "Your dream wave pattern from 5 years ago, before the ban, and the quantum disturbance we detected 3 nights ago. A perfect match." Morgan's face remained impressively neutral, but inside thoughts raced at panic speed. The amplifier prototype had worked far better than anticipated. Too well, in fact. What should have been a minor, localized quantum fluctuation had apparently registered across whatever monitoring network the consortium had established. "Commissioner," Morgan said carefully, "I believe there's been a misunderstanding. While I can't explain the similarity in patterns, I assure you I've complied fully with the dream ban." Zilvex's outer membrane flashed what might have been the alien equivalent of an eye roll. "Save your protestations for the tribunal, Dr. Reed. We are detecting an ongoing quantum anomaly of unprecedented magnitude. If you are responsible, wittingly or not, cooperation now may mitigate your sentence." As if on cue, the laboratory's quantum state monitor emitted a series of increasingly urgent beeps. All eyes, eye stalks, sensory membranes and optical sensors turned toward the display, where the impossible readings had just become significantly more impossible. "Oh," Morgan said with remarkable understatement. "That's not good." The display showed quantum entanglement patterns spreading outward from Earth at faster than light speeds, affecting all matter in their path. According to the readings, fundamental particles across at least 7 nearby star systems were entering superposition states that had never been observed or theorized. "What have you done?" Zildex demanded, his membrane now pulsating with alarmed ultraviolet frequencies. Morgan stared at the display, genuine shock replacing the carefully maintained, innocent expression. I think I dreamed about Schrödinger's cat, but I was thinking about probability waves across multiple dimensions, and the amplifier must have—" "Amplifier?" Zilvex interrupted sharply. "You constructed a dream amplification device? That is a Class 1 reality hazard." "So?" "I've been told," Morgan muttered. "Look, what matters now is that we have a quantum probability cascade spreading across multiple star systems. If it continues unchecked, we could see macro-scale quantum effects." "Meaning?" prompted one of the containment team members. "Meaning," Morgan explained with the forced patience of a genius surrounded by relative incomprehension, "that instead of subatomic particles existing in multiple states simultaneously, we could see entire planets, stars or people existing in superposition. Reality itself would become probabilistic on a visible scale. There was a moment of stunned silence as everyone processed this information. "We need to evacuate the affected systems immediately," Zolvek declared. "There's no time," Morgan countered. "The cascade is moving faster than light. By the time your messages reach those systems, they'll already be affected." A pause, then, "There's only one way to stop this." "No," Zivek said immediately, guessing Morgan's intent. "Absolutely not. I caused this with a dream," Morgan insisted. "I can fix it the same way. The Amplify, the same illegal device that created this catastrophe." Zilvek's membrane practically strobed with incredulity. "Yes," Morgan admitted, "but calibrated correctly this time. I can dream a countersetter, collapse the probability waves back to normal parameters." Zilvek's sensory appendages quivered in what might have been considered a thoughtful expression. "And if you make it worse?" Morgan's smile was grim. "Then we'll all have much bigger problems than consortium regulations." 3 hours later, Morgan lay on a laboratory couch surrounded by both quantum monitoring equipment and very nervous consortium officials. The dream amplifier, retrieved from where G had hidden rather than destroyed it, was fixed to Morgan's forehead, its settings carefully adjusted. "Remember," Zilvek instructed, "you must focus only on stabilizing the quantum probability fields. Any stray thoughts about other quantum states could exacerbate the cascade." "Thank you for the performance pressure," Morgan replied dryly. "That's exactly what someone needs when the fate of several star systems depends on their ability to have the right dream." GA administered a carefully calculated sedative. "This will put you into REM sleep quickly, but leave your lucid dreaming capabilities intact." As consciousness began to fade, Morgan focused intently on the mathematical equations representing normal quantum states. The last thing Morgan heard before dreaming began was Zilvek's membrane making what sounded suspiciously like a prayer in his native electromagnetic pulses. The dream began, as all dreams do, with the nonsensical logic that seems perfectly reasonable to the sleeping mind. Morgan was simultaneously in the laboratory and floating in space, observing quantum particles that were the size of planets. Schrödinger's cat appeared, but instead of being a cat, it was the concept of catness itself, spread across probability space like butter on cosmic toast. "You've made quite a mess," the cat concept remarked conversationally. "I didn't mean to," Morgan replied, which is the universal excuse of those who tamper with forces beyond their understanding. "Intent is irrelevant to quantum mechanics," the cat pointed out. "Observation collapses the wave function regardless of what the observer intended." All around them, reality was becoming fuzzy at the edges. Stars flickered between different spectral classifications. Planets existed in multiple orbits simultaneously. On one particularly unfortunate world, its inhabitants found themselves briefly existing as both their current selves and the evolutionary forms their species might have taken under slightly different circumstances. Morgan focused, bringing to mind the precise mathematical formulation of quantum stability. In the dream, these appeared as glowing equations that Morgan could manipulate like physical objects. "The problem," Morgan explained to the cat concept, "is that I created a superposition of superpositions. A metastate where the rules of quantum mechanics themselves exist in multiple states. Clever monkeys shouldn't play with reality's source code," the cat concept remarked, somehow managing to sound both impressed and condescending. Morgan ignored this and began mentally reconfiguring the equations, adding stabilizing factors and damping coefficients. The dream space around them gradually became less chaotic, the fuzzy edges of reality sharpening back into focus. But something unexpected was happening. As Morgan worked, patterns became visible in the quantum field. Patterns that shouldn't exist. Structures within the probability space that looked almost designed. "That's impossible," Morgan whispered. The cat concept stretched lazily. "Is it? Or have you simply discovered something that was already there?" Morgan stared at the intricate patterns now visible in the quantum foundation of reality. They weren't random fluctuations or natural phenomena. They were engineered structures, quantum architecture on a cosmic scale. Someone built this, Morgan realized. The quantum field, it's been shaped, controlled, and now you know why they banned human dreamers, the cat concept said, its form shifting between states of existence. "Because you can see the cage." With that cryptic statement, the dream began to fade as the sedative wore off. Morgan fought to stay asleep. to understand more about the patterns, but consciousness was returning with the inexorable persistence of an unwanted morning alarm. Morgan awoke to an unusually quiet laboratory. The monitoring equipment showed normal readings. The quantum cascade had been stopped. But the assembled consortium officials weren't celebrating. They were staring at Morgan with expressions ranging from shock to fear to what might have been awe. "It worked?" Morgan asked, sitting up groggily. "The quantum anomalies have been resolved," Zilvex confirmed, his membrane unusually still. "But that's not the issue. Then what is?" G stepped forward, tablet in hand. "While you were dreaming, we recorded this." She turned the screen toward Morgan, showing a visualization of Morgan's dream state alongside the quantum field readings. The patterns were there, the same engineered structures Morgan had seen in the dream, but now they were visible in the actual quantum field data, clear as a blueprint. "That's impossible," one of the consortium scientists whispered. "Those patterns, they're artificial constructs within the quantum probability space itself." "Someone has been engineering the fundamental structure of reality," Zilvex stated, his usual bureaucratic tone replaced by something approaching religious awe. "For how long, we cannot say, but these structures appear to be maintaining stability across all quantum systems." Morgan's mind raced. "The dream ban. You didn't implement it because humans were destabilizing quantum fields. You did it because we might discover these structures." Zilvex's membrane rippled in what might have been discomfort. "The consortium has suspected the existence of such engineering for millennia. Theoretical models suggested it, but we had no way to directly observe quantum probability space the way human dreamers can. When humans started dreaming into quantum fields, you were afraid we'd find out," Morgan concluded. "But that doesn't explain the ban. Why not just keep it classified?" Zilvex hesitated, electromagnetic patterns shifting in complex ways the translator couldn't process. An older consortium official stepped forward. "Because, Dr. Reed, we don't know who or what built these structures, and we fear they might notice if too many observers suddenly start examining their work." The implication hung in the air like a suspended anvil in a cartoon. Some entity or civilization with the technology to engineer the fundamental fabric of reality itself might not appreciate others discovering their handiwork. So the dream ban wasn't about preventing humans from destabilizing quantum fields, Morgan said slowly. It was about preventing us from attracting attention. "Precisely," Zilvex confirmed. "Until now, we believed a blanket ban was safer than risking discovery, but you've shown us something unexpected." He gestured to the readings. "Your dream didn't just restore normal quantum states. It repaired damaged sections of these structures. Somehow, human dream consciousness is compatible with the quantum architecture in ways our technology cannot replicate." Morgan contemplated this revelation. "So human dreamers aren't causing quantum instability at all. We're actually maintaining it, just like these structures do." "It appears," Zilvex said with obvious reluctance, "that human dream consciousness evolved to interact with these quantum structures, perhaps even as a result of them." The laboratory fell silent as everyone processed the implications. Humans weren't cosmic dangers after all. They were quantum maintenance workers. The ban had actually been preventing the very stability it claimed to protect. "Well," Morgan finally said with a smile that was equal parts vindication and irony, "I guess this means I'm not under arrest anymore." 6 months later, the Galactic Consortium's 438th emergency session convened to address the human dreamer situation. The chamber buzzed with an entirely different energy than the previous meeting. Less fear, more excitement, though still with that undercurrent of existential dread that seems to be the default state of bureaucratic bodies throughout the universe. High Counselor Arx Talgorp called the session to order with his neutronium gavel, which had recently been fitted with dampening fields after an unfortunate incident involving an excited gesture and a small moon. "Representatives of the consortium," he began, "today we vote on Resolution CR70 734 Epsilon revised, reclassifying human dreaming from a Class 1 reality hazard to a Class 3 essential stability mechanism." On a floating platform near the councillor's podium stood Morgan Reed, now director of the newly established Human Quantum Dream Institute. Next to Morgan stood Commissioner Zilvex, whose title had been modified from Dream Enforcement to Dream Coordination. a change he accepted with as much grace as could be expected from someone whose entire career had just been proven fundamentally misguided. Dr. Reed, Arctailgorp prompted, please summarize your findings for the assembly. Morgan stepped forward. Representatives of the consortium, our research confirms that human dreaming evolved specifically to interact with the quantum architecture underlying our reality. When we dream, our consciousness becomes entangled with these structures, performing maintenance and stability functions. Holographic displays showed the dream patterns of volunteer human dreamers alongside quantum field readings, the correlation unmistakable. The quantum destabilization events previously attributed to human dreaming were actually the result of these structures deteriorating without sufficient dream maintenance, Morgan continued. By banning human dreaming, the consortium inadvertently accelerated the problem it was trying to prevent. Sub-Councillor Frexilby's crystalline form refracted thoughtful patterns. And what of the entities who built these structures? Have you found evidence of their identity or purpose? Not yet, Morgan admitted. The architecture appears to be billions of years old, possibly predating the current universe. We're calling them the architects for lack of a better term. As for their purpose, a shrug. The structures maintain quantum stability across the entire observable universe. Whether that's for our benefit or theirs remains unknown. The vote that followed was nearly unanimous, with only a few representatives, mostly from civilizations with religious objections to the idea that reality itself might be engineered, abstaining. Human dreamers were not only permitted but actively encouraged. Dream amplification technology, refined and made safer, was distributed to human colonies across consortium space. Teams of trained dream technicians worked in shifts, their sleeping minds maintaining the quantum architecture like cosmic janitors tidying up probability functions. Morgan Reed, standing on the observation deck of the new institute and watching Earth rotate below, reflected on the irony of it all. Humans, barely civilized by galactic standards, turned out to be essential to the stability of reality itself. Not because they were special or chosen, but because their messy, chaotic brains had evolved in just the right way to perceive and interact with the quantum underpinnings of existence. Commissioner Zilvex floated nearby, his membrane displaying the muted colors of philosophical contemplation. There is a question that continues to trouble me, Director Reed, he admitted. Just one? Morgan asked with a smile. Did humans evolve the ability to interact with these structures by chance? Or did the structures somehow influence human evolution to create the maintenance system they required? Morgan considered this. Does it matter? Either way, we're here, doing a job we didn't know existed until 6 months ago. I suppose not, Zilvex conceded. Though I find it curious that of all species in the galaxy, only humans dream in a way that interfaces with quantum structures. Maybe we're not the only ones, Morgan suggested. Maybe cats do too. Would explain why they sleep so much. Zilvex's translator rendered what might have been a chuckle. Schrödinger would appreciate the irony. The universe runs on irony, Morgan replied, watching as the first shift of dream technicians filed into their sleep chambers below. We banned dreamers to protect reality, only to discover reality needs dreamers to remain protected. We feared human imagination as a weapon, only to find it's actually a repair tool. Zilvex's membrane shifted to a color that the translator couldn't quite capture. Perhaps the greatest irony is that we may never know if we're the builders of reality or merely its maintenance staff. Morgan smiled. Maybe we're both simultaneously existing in all possible states until observed. Just like Schrödinger's cat. Somewhere in the quantum architecture underlying reality, patterns shifted in what might almost have been amusement. And in the dreams of sleeping humans across the galaxy, cats that weren't quite cats purred in quantum superposition, existing and not existing, watching and being watched, maintaining the delicate balance between what is and what might be. Because the universe, as it turns out, does have a sense of humor, and it particularly enjoys a joke that comes full circle.